The New York Jets, man, you got to give them a lot of credit. Like, general manager Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, they're building a monster. Like, the Jets dominated the offseason. Free agency, they signed offensive guard Laken Tomlinson, who played under Mike LaFleur when he was in San Francisco. He's one of the best interior offensive linemen in the game. He was one of the best offensive guards available in free agency. The Jets improve their offensive line. Now you pair Lincoln Tomlinson up with Elijah Vera Tucker, George Fant, Mekhi Becton. The Jets offensive line is going to be really solid this year. Okay? Then you get more weapons for Zach Wilson. You draft Garrett Wilson in this past year's NFL draft. You still do have Corey Davis, who is a really productive wide receiver when he's able to stay on the field. You have Elijah Moore, who is expected to have a breakout season. Let's not forget about Denzel Mims. Like, did we forget about Denzel Mims? What happened to Denzel Mims? Haven't really heard anything about him. Like, the Jets drafted him out of Baylor a couple of years ago, and it's like, we haven't really heard anything about him. But the Jets do have some pretty solid depth at wide receiver as well. Then at tight end, you sign CJ Uzama, who was a very critical part of that Bengals offense, regardless of what the stats say. You know, he was Joe Burrow's safety blanket at times. He has pretty reliable hands. So for Zach Wilson, if you're looking for a sure-handed target to throw the football, to move the chains on third downs, CJ Uzama is your guy. So for the New York Jets, man, like, they basically said, hey, Zach Wilson, like, no more excuses. We need to see some big things out of you this year. Like, the wide receiving core is going to be there. We got you a true number one in Garrett Wilson, even though, you know, Elijah Moore could have became your true number one. Now you have, you know, two good potential true number one wide receivers in Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, right? So you have your wide receiver position taken care of. Now you improve the offensive line. But what about running back? Well, you already had Michael Carter. So what do you do to bolster the running back room even more? Oh, you draft Breece Hall, the best running back in this past year's draft class. So the draft that the Jets had was so great that I saw one insider compare it to the draft that the New Orleans Saints had back in 2018, I think it was 2018. I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think it was 2017. That was the draft where they drafted Ryan Ramczyk. They also drafted in the first round Marshawn Lattimore. They also got Marcus Williams. Like, they had a really good draft. And there was an insider that said that he believes that the Jets draft this past year is just as good as that 2017 draft class that the New Orleans Saints had. And that draft class that they had was ridiculous. So you look at what, you know, the key players that the Jets got from this past year's draft. You got Sauce Gardner, arguably the best cornerback in the class, depending on who you ask. Then you get Garrett Wilson, the best receiver in the draft, depending on who you ask. Then you were able to get Jermaine Johnson, which I don't know how the heck he fell to late in the first round, because he should have been gone off the board by the 15th pick. So, like, you got another steal. So you got three high-level players, three potential all-pro players who are drastically going to change your franchise if you're able to, you know, develop them properly and put them in the proper roles that they need to be in to succeed and break out. Then on defense, you know, the defense still is a work in progress, but, you know, this defense has definitely came a long way compared to what it was last season. Like, you have Carl Lawson, who's going to be coming back fully healthy. You got rookie Jermaine Johnson, who could right off the bat have 8 sacks. You're going to have Quentin Williams in the contract year. CJ Mosley still pretty good. Then you have Ashton Davis, who I like a lot. I'm really excited about him. I think he could end up having a breakout season for the Jets defense. So, I mean, like, the Jets are building a monster. And this video isn't really about what the Jets are going to do this season. It's more about looking forward to the future. You know, like, if everybody ends up playing up to their potential, the Jets within, 2-3 more years could be Super Bowl contenders. And I know that's something that may sound really crazy to a lot of you guys, but I mean, like, you look at how much the Jets have been able to obtain when it comes to draft capital. So it's going to be really interesting seeing how many of these players are going to hit, because Joe Douglas right now has done a pretty good job of not only managing the New York Jets when it comes to what they do in free agency, but also making sure that they're able to get the most out of their draft picks. Like, he's making pretty good draft picks. So, like, Joe Douglas, like, he deserves like a quiet round of applause for the job that he's done with the New York Jets. He pretty much has given Zach Wilson everything that he needs to be successful. So now it all comes down to the coaching staff and the offensive coordinator and Mike LaFleur being able to put Zach Wilson in better situations than what he did last year. And it also, Bird comes down to, Zach Wilson. It's going to come down to, is he going to be better when it comes to making decisions with the football? Is he going to take smarter, more calculated risks? It's okay to take risks. However, you got to take smart risks. You don't want to take risks that are going to leave you broke with nothing. So the Jets are a team to look out for. And like I said, this team may not be great this season, but however, within the next 2 to 3 years, this franchise could surprise a lot of people, because they've been stacking talent. And teams that do stack talent, it eventually starts to show. Like the Cleveland Browns, they were stacking talent for years, and eventually it all started to come around. So you look at the Jets, even if Robert Saleh and this current regime that they have don't work out, whoever ends up becoming the next GM or head coach, if those guys end up getting fired, they're going to be in a situation where you have one of the most talented young rosters in a league that all they really need is the right coach to bring everybody together. So for Robert Saleh, man, like, I'm really intrigued in seeing how the New York Jets perform, not only this season, but in the next 2-3 years, because if everybody ends up hitting and playing up to the level of potential that everybody saw in them when they were drafted, and on top of that, if these free agent acquisitions work out, which I believe that they will, the New York Jets are going to be a really scary football team in the next couple of years, and they can be really scary this season. Like, they could be a team that's going under the radar that a lot of people may be sleeping on, because, I mean, if Zach Wilson ends up taking that next step, and that big next step, like, the Jets could definitely find themselves in one of the final spots, either the 6 or 7 seed, or at least competing for one of those final spots in the AFC playoff race come week 17 or the final weeks of the regular season. So I definitely feel like when you look at this Jets team right now, they are doing things the right way. They are building around their young quarterback. They're not just they didn't just draft Zach Wilson and say, you know what, we're going to draft you and we're just going to make you do everything by yourself. We're not going to give you no help. We're not going to draft no wide receivers for you. We're not going to sign no offensive lineman in free agency for you. Like, literally, that's what the New York Jets kind of did when they drafted Sam Darnold. They kind of just say, you know what, we're going to draft Sam Darnold, and we feel we feel like you're good enough that you're going to be able to overcome all our limitations. Like, literally, like, why would you draft the quarterback and not build around them? Why would you not try to improve the offensive line? Why would you not try to improve the wide receiving core? It seems like, the Jets never really took the measures that they're doing right now to build around Zach Wilson like they did for Sam Darnold. So for Zach Wilson, man, like, it's pretty much going to be a really big season for him. Because if Zach Wilson ends up, disappointing, could the Jets potentially look to test the quarterback market? Could they potentially look to upgrade that quarterback? Could they potentially bail on Zach Wilson? Because the way these quarterbacks continue to come out of the draft and whatnot, like, teams are always looking for the next best thing, the next bigger thing. They're always looking for the next upgrade, which means that, a lot of teams don't have a lot of patience when it comes to developing quarterbacks. The NFL is a lot different now in, the year 2022 than what it was back in 2007 when you used to draft your rookie quarterback and used to give him 4 to 5 years to show you that he was the dude, unless he was Jamarcus Russell bad and you had to get him up out of there in 2-3 years. But for Zach Wilson, like, I'm really excited to see what he does this season. And I think that he could end up taking that next step in his development. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of thinking about picking him up in a couple of fantasy football leagues. But if you're somebody who has not been paying attention to what the Jets have done this offseason, you need to look at their offseason moves. And you need to look at their roster, because their roster is young. There are a lot of young, talented players with a lot of upside. And of course, not everybody's going to end up hitting that upside. Of course, you're going to have some players who end up not panning out. But if the New York Jets are able to hit on at least half of their draft picks that they've had over their last 2 seasons that they've used, this football team is going to surprise a lot of people in the next couple of years with how good they're going to be. And they might be able to surprise you this season. But you guys let me know how you guys feel about the New York Jets, how you guys feel their offseason has been. Do you guys feel like the Jets have had the best offseason out of any other team in the league? Let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, like the video. Also, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. Every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on every single podcasting platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.